As you try to navigate your finances and get in control of your financial literacy, you're going to come across a lot of myths and just a lot of plain excuses that people use to hold themselves back when it comes to their financial responsibility. And while a lot of these myths and excuses might sound logical on the surface or make some type of sense, there could be a really big chance that these are the same things holding you back from being in control of your finances. So let's go over the 8 biggest financial myths that you will come across in your 20s and how to actually navigate them. Myth number 1, and this is probably the most common myth you'll ever hear, is I just need to make more money. This is almost always the very first thought people have when they start feeling stressed about their finances. They think to themselves, if I could just earn a little bit more, things would finally be easier. And to be fair, there is some truth to that. More income can definitely help, but only if you actually know how to handle it. What usually happens instead is most people are not disciplined enough to actually manage more money. So as their income goes up, their spending goes up right alongside with it. They move into a nicer apartment, they upgrade their car, they eat out more, they buy more convenience and comfort. And now suddenly they're stressed again, just at a higher income level with more expensive responsibilities. That's why the issue is almost never your actual income. It's the lack of financial systems you have in place. More money doesn't fix bad habits. It amplifies them. It actually makes the relationship between how much money you earn and how much money you spend worse if you don't have control. And that's why I call this a myth, because the real breakthrough doesn't usually come from making more money first. It comes from learning how to manage the money you already have. The people who actually get ahead are the ones who learn budgeting, financial literacy, discipline, consistency, all of those boring but powerful skills when they're actually at a very low income level. Because if you can build strong financial systems on a lower income level, the amount of money you actually need to feel secure, it drops a lot. And I know this because this is something I've experienced. There was a time when I wasn't good with my money at all. I didn't know how to manage it. I didn't know what actually made me happy financially. I didn't know how to control my spending. And because of that, I genuinely thought I needed some massive paycheck, like $500,000 a year, just to feel secure. Well, now with how I treat money today, I honestly believe that if I made $80,000 a year, I could be probably financially set for life. And that shift didn't come from earning more money, it came from building those systems. So if you're watching this and thinking, once I make more money, everything's going to be better, I'd really challenge you to audit the systems that you currently have in place right now when it comes to your finances. Myth number 2 is the idea that budgeting means you're miserable. Like the second you start budgeting, your life turns into spreadsheets and just never having fun again. And I've talked about this a few times on my channel, but that's not what budgeting's supposed to be at all. I think of this as a myth because people associate budgeting with restriction. But in my opinion, budgeting should be about clarity of your finances. A lot of people like to think that budgeting is about saying no to everything, not hanging out with anybody, not seeing anybody, eating, peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, when in reality, it's just about being intentional with your money. When you don't have a budget, money usually just disappears and stress fills that gap. I'm sure there's been multiple times where if you or a friend didn't have a budget, you might think to yourself, hey, I just got paid, where'd my money go? So you're constantly guessing, can I afford this? Should I be doing this? And that guessing creates financial stress. But when you actually have a plan in place, you know what's safe to spend, you know where your money's going, you have that easygoing budget that's in control of your finances, ironically, that actually gives you more freedom, not less freedom. So budgeting is not about killing joy. It's literally all about removing uncertainty when it comes to where your money's going. And I'd much rather spend my money confidently, knowing that I planned for it, than spend impulsively and stress about it. And once you experience that for the first time, suddenly you're going to stop believing all the people who tell you that budgeting is super restrictive and you can't enjoy anything. Myth number 3 is investing is only for rich people. And this one holds people back for years, especially if you're in your early 20s. A lot of people are going to think that investing is something that you only do after you're successful. Like you're not allowed to open an investment account until you hit a certain net worth. But obviously that's not true at all. But what happens is a lot of people wait, and waiting is the most expensive choice you'll ever make when it comes to investing. Look, the truth is this. Investing will never be about how much money you're able to start with. I don't care if you're only able to start with $5, a week. When I first got into investing, that's literally how much money I invested. I invested $5 every week into something like VU. It's not about how much money you have. It's about how early and how consistent you're able to start. And time matters a lot more than anything else when it comes to investing because of compound interest. Look, it's very simple. Someone investing a small amount of money, like I said, $5 a week, it doesn't matter, in their early 20s will usually always beat someone who started in their later 30s or later 40s with more money. And that's just how compounding works. You need time on your side to truly see the rewards that come from investing. So by no means do you need to be quote unquote rich or successful to start investing. If you have a part-time job and you're only able to invest $10 a month, I would highly recommend you do it, because the earlier you start, the more time you have on your side, and the quicker you're going to build those skills, so as your income grows, the amount you want to invest grows as well. Myth number 4 is debt is normal and everyone has it. Now, while this in theory is kind of true, I almost see this more of as an excuse, right? While debt is kind of common, and while yes, a lot of people have debt, that doesn't make it harmless, and that doesn't excuse yourself into collecting, into putting yourself into more debt. A lot of people like to normalize debt because it's everywhere, right? Everyone probably has a car payment. A lot of people have credit cards. Buy now, pay later's popping up everywhere. Most people have student loans, and it all gets treated like it's some normal part of life where we're all supposed to like hold hands and rejoice that we all have debt together. But that's not how it should be, right? Debt is stealing your future income. It locks you into a lot of decisions that you haven't even made yet. And before your paycheck even hits your account, a lot of it already belongs to that debt. It's like you're literally putting a handcuff on your income when you have a lot of this debt, especially high interest debt. And that's going to limit your financial freedom way more than people realize. That's why if you listen to Dave Ramsey, a lot of people tell you before you start investing, before you start saving crazy amounts of money, pay off your debt as soon as possible. And look, not all debt is evil, but treating debt like it's unavoidable is very dangerous, especially for younger people. You know, financial progress usually starts when you reduce a lot of your obligations, but when you stack them, it makes it very difficult to get ahead financially. And far too often we see 18-year-olds or young 20-year-olds getting themselves into high interest credit card debt or into very expensive car payments because their whole lives it's been normalized everywhere, between their family members, between social media. So while debt is normal, and while yes, everyone does have it, it's not an excuse for you to take more of it on. Myth number 5 is the myth of a lot of people telling themselves that I'm just going to start saving when life calms down. Look, I'm 25 now, and I don't know about you guys, but every year that goes by, I feel like my life gets less and less calm. Like always, something's always happening, new things are always happening. There's always issues popping up, good things popping up, bad things popping up. And while this one sounds logical on the surface, and a lot of people tell themselves like, oh yeah, I'll just start saving when my life calms down, or I'll just start saving when I get this house, or I'll just start saving when this happens. It sounds logical, but at the end of the day, this is a huge financial trap that a lot of people fall for. Because look, there's always going to be something in your life, and that's just how life works. There's always going to be a bill, there's always going to be a trip that comes up, there's always going to be someone's birthday, and there's always a reason to wait. And this one almost goes with the last one too, where a lot of people wait on investing because there's always a reason to wait. You can always make an excuse why you should not invest today. You can always make an excuse why you should not save today. But the truth is, life does not calm down for pretty much anyone, especially on its own. You know, saving isn't what you do when life's easy, right? It's what makes life easier over time. Even small amounts of money saved can create a decent amount of breathing room. And that breathing room changes how you think, how you make decisions, and overall your just stress levels when it comes to your money. So waiting for the perfect moment to save is how people usually get themselves in really bad financial situations, because they always make up some type of excuse or some type of reason to not save their money. And then one bad bill pops up, something breaks down with their car, a house expense pops up, and now they're in a really tough situation. And those same people wish they would have started saving $20 a month, even $10 a month, $100 a month, whatever it might be, years ago. Myth number 6 is people telling you that buying a house is always the best financial move. Look, home ownership has always been treated like the ultimate financial goal. And look, I get it. Having real estate under your name is one of the best things you can do for your net worth and your overall finances. But buying a house is not always and automatically just a good move. It's only a good move when the timing, the numbers, and the lifestyle that you live actually makes sense. Buying a house too early or buying it for too much money or just buying it out of pressure can trap you financially. Maintenance is huge, repairs are huge, taxes and interest can add up super fast. And a lot of that does not get talked about enough when people think about buying a house as a financial decision. And look, if you decide to rent and invest versus buy a house, that's not throwing money away. Look, if renting gives you the flexibility and stability you need, I think it's a great idea. And home ownership should be a thing you strive for, but it should be very intentional and not rushed because someone told you that's what you're supposed to do to get in control of your finances. So in my opinion, a house should be used as a financial tool and not some type of trophy for your net worth. Myth number 7 is credit cards are evil. And while some people say they're evil and avoid credit cards entirely because they've been told it's dangerous, I truly believe that credit cards are something that if you can use properly, they're a great thing to loop into your financial control. But a lot of the times, most people are not disciplined enough to actually use credit cards. Because look, if you use a credit card correctly, look, they'll build your credit. They can protect purchases, and they can make certain parts of life just a little bit easier. Whereas if you avoid credit cards completely, well, it can make things harder when you need to rent or you need to finance or you need to qualify for better rates. So the goal when it comes to credit cards is control. You need to have the utmost control over your credit cards when you decide to use them. Because at the end of the day, if you can use a credit card correctly and you use those points, you can get free flights, you can get free hotels. And it's especially if it's on things that you already know you're going to buy, like groceries or gasoline, whatever it might be. But the minute that goes overboard, the minute you start using credit cards to buy things that you don't need, or you start using credit cards to buy things that you truly can't afford, that's where credit cards can become something that truly ruin you financially. And the last myth I want to go over is you thinking to yourself that everyone else has it figured out. And while yes, if you're on social media and you're watching finance YouTubers or you're watching X, Y, and Z, a lot of times social media is going to make it look like just every single person has their finances figured out except you, right? You're going to see people buying homes. You're going to see people traveling consistently. You're going to see people investing perfectly. They're up 50% this year and you're up maybe 10%. And overall, people are just living their best life with $1 million portfolios and they're just doing better than you. But look, not every single person has their finances figured out. If you look at the statistics, literally the majority of people have no idea what they're doing when it comes to their finances. So if you're even watching a video like this and you're trying to put yourself financially ahead, you can probably assume you're doing better than the majority of people. And most people are way more stressed than they look. A lot of these people you see online with their investment accounts, some of them might be leveraged, they might be financing certain things or just kind of struggling. And obviously they're not going to tell you about that, right? So comparing your real life, like what's going on in your day-to-day with your finances to what someone else is posting on social media, that's probably one of the fastest ways to sabotage your confidence in your decision making. And most people, they just learn as they go, just like you. A big reason I even am making these YouTube videos is to teach myself. I feel like I have a lot more financial literacy skills than a lot of people my age, but by no means do I have anything figured out. I still stress about money. Sometimes I still edit my plan. I still edit my budget because it's all skills that we're trying to build. So if you're sitting there and you're watching this video or you've watched other videos and you're starting to think to yourself or get down on yourself that everyone else has it figured out except you, I promise you that is not the case. And even if you're trying to make small steps in the right direction, I promise you you're probably doing a lot better than you think when it comes to your finances. So look, if there's one thing I want you to take away from this video, it's this. Most of the things holding people back when it comes to getting in control of their finances aren't actually mistakes they make. It's beliefs, it's myths, it's excuses that have been put out there into the world that they follow. They're ideas we pick up from society, from parents, from social media, and just even, well-meaning people around us. And we never really stop to question these people. We just assume that financial stress is normal. We assume that debt is unavoidable and that one day things will magically click if we make enough money. But the people who actually get ahead usually don't have some secret hack or some crazy income early on. They just unlearn a lot of bad advice sooner than a lot of other people. They build systems before lifestyle. They build, discipline. They build consistency. And a lot of the times too, school doesn't teach us anything about this, so we have to learn it on our own. And none of this happens overnight. This isn't about becoming perfect with money. It's just about slowly stacking those small wins until your finances, feeling heavy, start to feel manageable. So if you're watching this and you're realizing that you've believed one or two of these myths over time, it's not failure at all. That's awareness, and awareness is usually your first step towards some type of change. So take what resonated from this video, ignore what didn't, and just start where you are, because that's how the financial momentum you need actually gets built. So if you found this helpful, I'd appreciate a subscription and a thumbs up, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a good day.